your parameters on your data, and you go to the second part here. So the challenge now is to optimize the combination. So let's say that you have a model that describes the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of some drug, and you want to combine it to be able to, for instance, kill the maximum number of cells. So this is the first thing that you want to do. Number one, define what you want to do. What do you want to do? What is the strategy? And in terms of mathematics, what would be the objective, basically? So usually, I mean, for cancer, for oncology, that would be I want to minimize my disease, I want to minimize my tumor size. But of course, this is not really realistic because you all know that the disease and in particular the tumor is within the patient, and you have to make sure that you don't kill the patient. I mean, that's the minimum you can do, right? So basically, you can translate that into a constraint on the dose. So you would like to minimize the tumor size under the constraint of the maximum tolerated dose. I don't want my dose of this drug to go above, for instance, 100 micromolar. Or you can also include into your mathematical model a representation of healthy cells that you don't want to damage. For instance, let's say that I don't want to have too many toxicities on my blood cells. I would represent my blood cells and the activity of the drug inside the blood cells, and then put the number of healthy cells not to be killed inside my constraints in my objective, in my cost function. Because again, this is the cost function that we are using. So basically, this is the cost function. The second part is what are going to be the things I want to target in my mathematical model. What are going to be the drugs that I want to test? So in a mathematical model like that, what you can test is basically virtually every variable or every arrow. So if you want to change, let's say I want to model the inhibitor of protein A. So one easy way to do that is just to set the initial condition of A to 0. Okay? So basically I will run my model. So my model that I have, but with a different initial condition for A, protein A, and I will set it to 0. And this is a way to say I have inhibited my protein A. And you can do that for any initial condition, but you can also change the values of your arrows, so the value of your parameters. And then basically, step 2 would be listing the different targets in your mathematical model, which makes sense. That's it. So, and they are among your parameters and your initial conditions. That's it. So now, basically, you have I don't want to say parameters, but basically those are the variables that are going to be minimized for. And then you run a minimization algorithm, so again, the same, so I would recommend CMIS, of course. And you minimize your objective for the parameters here that you have defined into. And like this, you actually get a model optimized combination just by actually getting the best fit parameter set from 3. And here, that's the time where you actually go and see your collaborators in the lab or in the clinics and say, okay, according to my mathematical modeling, I think that we should give this particular drug to, for instance, kill the maximum number of cancer cells. And then your collaborators hopefully will design an experiment to test and validate or not your drug combinations. So if it's validated, then it's okay, it's cool. You have done your job, and then the project is finished. On the opposite, if the experiment shows that your drug combination is not effective or not effective enough, then you have to question yourself. So why is it not effective enough? Where is the problem? Then you have to go back. So it can either be a problem at the level of the model design. So this is basically here. So it can either be a problem at the model design level or at the level of the parameters. So in any case, you will need either to change your equations or your parameter values. And something that is nice is because you do have a mechanistic view with this type of model, you can suggest new experiments that will help you identify why your model is not correct and why your project has led to a wrong drug combination. And then like this you iterate. Then if you have a better model, then you go back to this arrow, redo the optimization for the drug combination, and hopefully go to that direction again. Okay, so that's it for the whole pipeline. So now the idea is to show the real-world application. Not sure I will have time to do this today, or probably, let's see. Any questions about the part number 2? No? Everything is clear? Okay. Okay, before I introduce the real-world problem, let me just have 2 slides of biological reminders. So, if you don't know, so this is a cell. Let me introduce you to a cell. So, a cell is like the unit that from which our body is constituted, and there are different organelles inside the cells. So, maybe don't look at all of them. So, what you can focus on is first the nucleus. So the nucleus is where the DNA is. Importantly would be we will talk about the mitochondria. So the mitochondria is the primary function is to handle the energy of the cells, to make sure that the energy is balanced, and to create energy when needed. And it's also involved in some types of cell death. And in particular, one cell death that we call apoptosis, which is actually the cell suicide. So sometimes when the cells are too damaged, they actually decide to commit suicide. And this is called apoptosis. And the second thing I wanted to make sure that everybody gets is the way that the proteins are actually created. So proteins are like the tools of the cell. So if the cell wants to have some particular activity, they will require proteins to do so. And the way that the proteins, which are represented, I'm sorry, the quality is not very good. So proteins are here, and basically they are created from mRNAs. So and these mRNAs are coming from the transcription of the DNA. So in the nucleus, the DNA is red, and it gives rise to mRNAs, and this is called transcription. And of course, those mRNAs can be divided, and then mRNAs give rise to proteins, and this step is called translation. And it's clearly not one-to-one. You have a few mRNAs, and you have a lot of proteins. So one molecule of mRNA will help creating plenty of protein. Okay, so this is something that may be useful for the following. Okay, so let's go to the real world. So I'm going to show you here something that we have published a few years ago, which is something that we like to call a proof of concept of quantitative systems pharmacology, and it's going to be in vitro. This is the reason why we call it a proof of concept. In vitro means that we are in petri dishes, okay? So we just have the cells, we don't have the entire organism. So in this project, we have 2 cell populations. So we have the good ones and the bad ones. So the good ones are healthy cells, not transformed. So I'm going to use these terms quite often. Okay, so we are interested in this oncogene, which is called SARC. And Src is often mutated, so overexpressed in cancer cells. And the biologists, so our colleagues in Lyon, in France, so they wanted to reproduce this in vitro. So now we have two cell populations. So again, we are in petri dishes, okay? So we have this normal, which are non-transformed. And then we have what we call the cancer, which are transformed. And they actually overexpress Src. And this is called, here this is called VSRC. That's this guy, okay? VSRC transformed. Well, probably a small detail is that basically you need this particular setting can be deactivated when you increase the temperature. But maybe you will not really care about this. So, at the beginning, what they have done, they have exposed those two cell populations to different cancer drugs. Okay, so the things that you see on the left, the three drugs, that are the name of three drugs here, which are cytotoxic drugs. Cytotoxic means that you want to kill the cells. Cyto is like this. Cyto is for cell, and toxic you want to kill. Cytotoxic. Okay. And as you can see, so on the y-axis we are looking at the number of apoptotic cells. So remember, apoptosis is death. So we are looking at the percentage of cells that actually dies a few days after the exposure to the three drugs. And as you can see, so if we just look at the as a start at the white bars, so we are looking at the good guys, so the normal cells. And so in the absence of treatment, so which is the first line, there's no death, which is okay. I mean, the cells are okay, they are in their petri dish and they are living, and it's fine, and it's the way it should be. If you expose the cells to etoposide, you will get some death here, the white, actually 50%, a bit less than 50% of the cells are actually dying. If you expose them to staurosporine, that's a disaster because 80% of your healthy cells are dying. And if you expose them to Talpsigargil, you also get plenty of death. Now, if you forget a bit about the conditions at 39.5 degrees and focus only on the 37 degrees, the black bars, as you can see here, the cancer cells, for any of the three drugs, you can see that the percentage of cells dying are really low. They are clearly below 10% and sometimes even below 5%. Meaning that the cells, the cancer cells, are not dying, they are not sensitive to the three anti-cancer drugs. Okay? So if I make a parallel with a patient, that would be, I have a tumor and I have a patient and I take a drug. So black bar, there is no activity on my tumor. Okay? My tumor is not sensitive at all to my drugs. White bars, but I do get some toxicities. So for instance, I may have some nausea or headache or things like that. So that's clearly the worst case scenario, right? I mean, you don't want to give this type of drugs, you don't want that in the clinic. So the question that we ask here is, can we use QSP, quantitative systems pharmacology, to actually reverse this situation and design a drug combination that we do the opposite, right? This is what we want. We want to kill all cancer cells, we want the black bars to be here, and we want the white bars to be here. We don't want to have any side effects, we don't want to have any toxicity. Okay, so now let's go to the pipeline, and as you can see, this is really close to what I presented in part 2. And as usual, in a QSP approach, we always start with the question, okay? So now we have to define the biological question that we want to address. As I was saying, now, for this project, the idea is to optimize the drug combination to eradicate the cancer cells without side effects. That's it. We don't want to harm the healthy cells, and we want to kill the cancer cells. So you will see that the biologists already identified a part of the intracellular network that was really different between normal and cancer cells, and this is called the mitochondrial pathway of apoptosis. So apoptosis, you know, it's cell death, and mitochondrial, now you know, is because it happens in the mitochondria, or at least it is initiated around the mitochondria, and I'm going to come back to that. So, as in part 2, we start with model design. So anything blue would be mathematics, and anything pink would be experiments or biology. So we start with model design, then we go to our experimental collaborators and we say, okay, we need that and that and that for calibrating the model or even for designing the model. Can you provide us with that? Then we go to parameter estimation, very important, and very long. And then once we have a calibrated model, we go to optimization and then hopefully to experimental validation. So I'm going to go through that. So let's start maybe with the model design. And even before this model, so this model will be in the presence of drugs, even before that, we decided to study what is happening in those cells without drugs. So here we are in normal conditions, and to prove what I just said, so do you know how to read this? Probably not. Have you ever seen Western blots? No, nobody. Western blots? Okay, so basically here you have to read this in line. So this is a type of data, and the intensity of the black is proportional to the amount of protein in your linear cell. So if you have, for instance here, plenty of black, it means that this protein is present, and then if you move here, your protein is not present anymore. So the column would be the different cells or cell conditions, and the lines would be the different proteins. So let's talk about the conditions first. So here we are only looking at the cancer cells. So we have 3 columns for three conditions of cancer cells. The first one is the cancer cells at 37 degrees. Typical one. So this is where they overexpress the SAR. So this is the P-SAR that you see here, the form that you actually care about. Well, that's something that I already told you, but if you increase the temperature, actually the construction goes away. And then RB is for RB-methine, and this is an inhibitor of SARC. Okay? And this is like a positive control. When you take the cancer cells and you expose them to an inhibitor of SARC, well, that's cool, it's working. It's not always like this in biology, you have to check every time. But here it's working. When you actually inhibit SARC, you don't see it anymore. Okay, so that's something that we know. That's okay, this is just a sanity check, I would say. Then let's go to this protein, which is called BEAK, which is going to be very important. So what they have discovered is that basically in normal conditions of cancer cells, we are still looking at cancer cells, there is no BEAK protein in the cells anymore. As you can see here, it's completely white. On the opposite, in the healthy cells, let's say in the absence of SARC, you should have BEAK. I mean, this should be present, and this is actually present in the normal cells. So this is something I'm going to ask, and we decided first to model the reason why BEAK is not present in the cancer cells. So we have created a mathematical model, which is this scheme here. So BEAK is transcribed. So remember that BEAK is the protein. So if there is a transcription coming from an mRNA. So here we just model this as a source. Okay, mRNA is a continuous source. And then BEAK is actually ubiquitinated, which is a way that the cell actually tag or label the protein to say, I want those proteins to be degraded. I mean, I don't want them anymore. So it's another species that is BEAK up, and then BEAK up is degraded ultimately. So this is what happens in the normal cells. But we suspect that in the cancer cells, something else happened. And basically, this is the orange here, the orange arrows. And this is something that we call FOS, or phosphorylation. And this is something that occurs only, well, we think it only occurs in normal cells. Let's see if is true. I mean, we are going to challenge that with the mathematical model. And this is the term that will depend on SARC. So let's write the equations. So big is continuously translated, so produced. So this is KF big, okay? So you have a zero order law of transaction, easy. Then big is also spontaneously labeled ubiquitinated towards its degradation. So that's first order here, the same that we have seen at the beginning of the course. And the last term here is about the orange part, so this part. And can you recognize the rate? I mean, what type of kinetic is that? Somebody louder? Yeah, Michael Snedden, that's the second law that we saw, okay? V SARC is now in the form of V0 and capital K SARC is K. And basically we have modeled that in the sense that SARC is not consumed by the reaction, but it's just helping the ubiquitination of big. So that's it for the equation of big. And now for big ubiquitination to big up. So as you can see, whatever is here will go there, okay? Then it's the same, whatever will go here will go there. So you have two positive terms for the creation of big up. And then you have a degradation term, because big up is not supposed to stay here, it's supposed to be degraded by some part of the model that we call some part of the set that we call proteasome. Okay, so we have the model, but remember that we have two cell populations. So how to model two cell populations? So the way that we have done that is by saying I want to keep the same model for both cell populations, but with different parameters. So we're going to have different parameter values. But to make it a bit more simple, we are not going to have all parameters specific for each cell line. So what we have decided to specifically investigate is, of course, this term, the term related to SARC, because this is the one the most of interest. So the parameters KF big and KU big and KD big, those three parameters are going to be the same for normal and tensor cells. Okay? On the opposite, the parameter VSARC and KSARC are going to be different for normal and tensor. And of course you want this, because remember that VSARC, V0, remember that V0 was actually K1, E0. And this is the enzyme, and this is the rate constant. So in that case, we have VSARC that is equal to some K1 times SARC. Okay, the concentration of SARC. And we know that this is super high in cancer, and this is super low in normal cells. So we expect VSARC to be very different between normal and cancer. Okay? So actually, the SARC in normal cells are close to 0. Sorry, SARC in normal cells is close to 0. On the opposite, SARC in cancer cells is super high. So can you predict the value of this in normal cells? Can you predict the value of this parameter? This parameter is the maximum velocity for the orange part, and it's also proportional to the concentration of the oncogene SARC. And as I was saying, the oncogene SARC is not supposed to be expressed in the cells. So what do you think would be the value of this parameter? I don't know who said that the is 0. Because basically you don't have the enzyme, or the enzyme and so of course the concentration, the rate is going to be 0. But okay, that's what we expect. But we didn't want to purge that. We wanted to derive this from the experimental data. So let's see what we get. Okay, so maybe just to come back. So now we have 3 parameters 3 parameters to estimate for those cell types, plus 2 parameters for the cancer cells and 2 parameters for the healthy cells. Okay. So now let's focus first on the degradation rate. This one. So we were actually lucky because we had some very nice experimental data which are plotted here. So those are data in special conditions. So those are data in cells exposed to some drugs that will stop completely the transcription. So if I go back here, this is not happening anymore. Okay? So basically, any protein you get at the beginning is everything you get. You will not have more protein because the cell is stopped. Okay? So basically, you start with a quantity of peak at the beginning, and it's going to be all the protein you're going to have. So the only thing that you are going to show, to see, is the 2 steps of degradation, basically. So the ubiquitination here, and then finally the degradation by the potato. So if I translate this in terms of parameters, yeah, exactly. Ksb, so this term, the 0 term here, is equal to 0. Okay? Because I have done it experimentally using drugs. Ksb equals 0. So now I can just, I only have the remaining equations. Okay, so this is what I have. Then I have 3 different conditions. Blue is, no, sorry, before I think that I will explain the axis. X-axis is time. So this is, I'm looking at something over time. And what do I look at? I look at the quantity of peak in percentage of the initial amount of peak. Okay, there is a peak 0, which we don't know actually, which is an additional parameter to estimate. And this is the 100%. And then we look at the rate of disappearance of degradation of peak over time. And we look at that in the blue, in the normal cells, which is the blue color, in the cancer cells, which is the red color, and in the cancer cells which are exposed to SRC inhibitor. So they should go back to normal. And this is the green color. So, as you can see already from the data, the degradation of peak is much faster in the cancer cells. As you can see, the curve here clearly go faster to 0 as compared to the normal cells. So we have done the parameter estimation using only those data points. So we have done least square with CMAS, exactly what I explained earlier. And what we found was the following. So initial amount of peak was estimated to 5.9 nanomolar. Molar is a mol per liter. I don't know if you are familiar with that. Molar, sorry, M. Is mol per liter, and nanomolar is 10 to the minus 9. Then peak was estimated to something actually really small, in the order of 10 to the minus 3. And then, as expected, the V SARC in the normal condition was estimated to 0, and the V SARC in the cancer condition was estimated to something actually really large. And the KSARC was estimated to that. Okay, I think, let's see. Yeah, I will probably finish with this because then, let's see, yeah, I will finish with that. Okay, so now, maybe going back to the full equation. So now we have this, let's see, we have K big, V star, K star. So we are F big, okay? So this is the last step of the parameter estimation. So for this, we are going to use the steady state. So it's really easy to compute the steady state from the equations. You can do it at home, just really using that. especially now that you know that Isarc is equal to 0 for the normal cells. So you just this term is actually equal to that. So from the steady state, you get this equation for Bic in normal conditions, and because you already have the value of K of Bic, and also because you set the Bic at steady state to 50 nanomolar last year, and this is something that we have taken from the literature. Okay, this is an assumption, this is an additional piece of data. Then you can easily compute Kf Bic, okay, transcription rate. And you can also use the steady state equation in the cancer cells. So which is here. Same, you put your equation to 0, you can do this at home, that's actually quite easy. And we know that from data, we know the ratio, from this actually, we know the ratio of Bic between cancer and normal, because you can actually quantify those two bands here, those two intensities, and we know that the ratio is about 0.2, I think. Yeah, here, it's 0.2. And the idea is to compute the Bic steady state first using this formula, because now we have all parameters. This is what we have done, and then you can actually, and this is what you get, 9.2 nanomolar for Bic in the cancer, and then you can compute the ratio of Bic between normal and cancer. And if you do that, you get 0.18, okay? And without actually using that, I got 0.18, and what I wanted was 0.2, which is really, really close, okay? So meaning that this is a way to validate my model, or partially validate my model using an independent piece of data. Okay, I will stop here for today, and tomorrow morning we will continue with the next step, which is really model design for ultimately trying to optimize the combination in this particular example. Thank you.